What up, YouTubes? My name's John. I'm the Moto Nerd. Thanks for visiting my channel. This is beautiful downtown San Diego. I am on my way to a doctor's appointment at the moment. But true to the Moto Nerd brand, if you will, I would like to talk about, excuse the camera footage here, adjusting. I would like to talk about the problem that I have with Apple. Now, I would like to preface this by saying I use Apple products every day. I have an iPhone and I have a Mac at work. I even have a Mac at home. But I have used all operating systems, and I still use all operating systems. I'm a web developer for a living, so I spend a lot of my time in a terminal, and I run a lot of web servers, so I use a lot of Linux. And I use Windows for gaming. I have Windows installed on my Macs. It doesn't work great for games because they put shitty hardware inside of their laptops. Which actually sort of brings me to what I wanted to talk about today. I feel like Apple has completely lost sight of what they once were good at, which is making a premium product for the professional market. Ever since, and this is an age-old thing, ever since Jobs died, but, ever since Steve Jobs died, I feel like the company has really gone downhill, and I really feel like they're not making products that a professional can use anymore. For example, Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects, industry standard software to use for video editing and for, animation for video. When they render, they either use your CPU or they use a GPU if you set it up that way. Now, currently, Adobe only supports NVIDIA cards, because it uses the CUDA cores inside of those cards. I believe they also support OpenCL, but don't quote me on that. But here's my issue: all new Apple hardware is putting AMD chips inside of them. Now, this is a problem in two ways, right? Number one, the fact that Adobe only supports, the CUDA cores and the NVIDIA cards is bullshit, first of all. But we're talking about Apple, so let's talk about Apple. They're putting cards inside of their hardware that directly contradict what the creative industry needs and what the creative software supports. Now, that to me seems pretty counterproductive. And I think it goes to show that Apple no longer cares about what a consumer needs. Well, they can say that, let me say it this way. A general consumer who's using their computer for fucking college or something like that, they're not going to care about that, right? They're just, on it doing word processing and little light graphic design work and stuff like that. No big deal. But, somebody who's a professional creative, I do web development for my day job, but outside of work, now I'm starting this YouTube channel, right? And I want to be able to render quickly, and I just can't on my Mac. And now, here I am, now I have to build a PC because what's going on? Oh, I can't fucking work as efficiently as I would like to. And this wasn't always the case. I've had Apple computers for a long time, and I've built PCs for a long time. And I find Apple's operating system to be fantastic. I think they do a great job with their operating system. But, when you got a good OS and you don't have the hardware to support that OS, like in a way that somebody would actually want to use it, you know, I think that that's really, really anti-consumer. And then plus the fact that, you know, now I can't even repair my own computer because they're starting to make it so that, you know, this shit locks down if you open it up. It's just, I'm just sick of their bullshit, man. And, you know, a lot of people will say, well, John, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Like, just use the CPU to render. Just stick with the Apple ecosystem or whatever. At least all the Apple fanboys will say that. But I'm at the point now where my next computer, my next personal computer is going to be the Dell XPS 15 because it's got a NVIDIA chip in it, so I can, you know, render my stuff with a little bit more power behind it. And it's also, you know, it's open. These new fucking MacBook Pros, they have the touch bar on them, and I like to run Linux when I'm not in Windows working on things or running games, right? So on the new MacBook Pros, I can't even install Linux because there is no good open source driver for the touch bar. And as anybody who has ever used Linux on the desktop knows, you know, you can't, it takes a while for them to catch up with new hardware because it's built by, you know, the community. All the drivers and everything are built by the community. So you either have to write it yourself, which I'm not that talented. I don't know how to do any like high-level programming or low-level programming, whatever you would call it. I'm a front-end developer. I make UIs and websites, you know. But yeah, you got to wait for that, and I just, you know, I'm just sick of that. I'm just sick of being locked into an ecosystem that doesn't give a shit about me and doesn't give a shit about anybody else. They just want to rip you off on the hardware and take your money and shoot you out the door. Their support sucks. They overcharge people for repairs, you know, and now they're making it so that it's harder for third-party repair people to take care of your hardware. You've lost all of your freedom as a consumer with Apple. I mean, I remember back in the day, you used to be able to buy a Mac Pro, and those things were upgradable for years. I just, not even a year ago, I had a 2008 Mac Pro that I used as, when I was doing a lot of music production, I had it as my studio computer. And it was rock solid. And you could put in new GPUs, you could upgrade the RAM, you could upgrade the processors. They were fantastic computers. And they let you stay, you know, you paid a lot for them. Sure, that's you know, it's kind of a given with Apple hardware that you're going to pay a lot of fucking money. And, you know, some people complain about that and say, well, it's not even worth it to begin with. And I would argue, and I'd say, you know, back then especially, the OS made it worth it for me. But now that's not true. And, like, I'm at the point where I would rather have control over my workflow and control over my hardware and the ability to repair it than deal with bullshit just to use an operating system I like. And I still love their operating system. And it's very easy to use. It's great for a developer. You have a terminal that actually is a native terminal. Their file system like is structured the same way as like a Linux system would be. So when you're going from, you know, you're taking a web project and you're deploying it on a web server, it's actually, you know, it's really painless and it's super easy and all the tools are similar and they integrate with one another. But, you know, at work it's fine. They paid for my MacBook Pro. And I'm not really going to do anything else on that MacBook Pro other than run Mac OS and do my job, deploy my shit, and go home. But, personally for me, now, I'm never paying for Apple hardware again until they decide that I'm worth it, that the professional user is worth it. And you know, some people are going to say, oh, well, with the new USB-C and Thunderbolt, you can go ahead and hang on. I gotta get over here. God, doing TekRantz while you're on the highway, man. You know, they're gonna say, oh well, you're gonna be able to connect an external graphics card. Why should I have to do that? Why should I have to pay another fucking 4 or 5, you know, how much are 1080s now? And those 1180s are like $1,000, but those 1080s are like $600, $700. Now I have to pay $700 on top of the amount that I've already paid for your fucking hardware that you already overcharged for. Not gonna happen, man. Done. Absolutely done. Dell is only I could get basically a fully loaded Dell XPS 15. It's got a NVIDIA 1050 graphics card in it. I can get it loaded with 32 gigs of RAM. God damn it. I can get it loaded with 32 gigs of RAM. It comes with a 6-core i7. I mean, $1,300, man. $1,300, $1,400 for the previous generation. A little more, for about 2 Gs for the new generation. But it's a very small price to pay, in my opinion, for something that actually works for me. Oh, and to boot, I can open it up on the bottom, and down the road, if I feel like I need more, I can put more RAM into it. I can add another SSD, or add a bigger SSD. Actually, I think it even has 2 spots for SSDs in it. So you could do two M.2 SSDs in the fucking thing. And you can even pull the battery out, the large, like, long life battery. And if you're willing to cut your battery life in half, which I don't give a shit about, I'm plugged in all the time anyways, you can add another 3.5-inch bay into the thing. That's amazing. That's what a pro user needs. Pro user doesn't need this piece of shit with everything soldered onto the board, forcing you into bad hardware that doesn't work with the software you need to use. I just, you know, I'm done. I'm done with Apple and their bullshit. And, you know, eventually I'd like to switch away from their phones too and get the Pixel, because the phones, you know, they're not innovating really. I mean, oh cool, Face ID. Wow, I mean, that's great. I think about the only place that Apple's innovating right now is in AR. But Google's doing a good job of that too, from what I've been reading. And, you know, I'm much more inclined to go with a company like Google. The only thing that I don't love about the Google stuff is they do a lot more data farming than Apple does. Apple, I think, is you know, it may be bullshit. Maybe it may just be corporate rhetoric, but I think that Apple respects privacy a little bit better, because they don't make their money on your data, really. They're making their money on their hardware. They're making their money on their software as a service. You know, the software as a service model, which is you know, it's a good way to make money. Google's making money on your metadata. You know, they're like, give me all of your metadata. We'll take it all. But anyways, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, if Apple made a computer that worked for me, I'd probably buy it again. But I don't see that happening for a long time. So, you know, let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure and like and subscribe if you dug my little rant here. Well, you know, I want to hear what you got to say. I'm down for other opinions. I always am. Just don't be a dick and be nice to people in the comment boxes. Alright guys, enjoy your day. Peace.